going into football now. We have these fans hate us, so that's really all there is to it. But your team is stupid, so that's really
You
that's the
know who you
reason.
are.
The Seattle Seahawks went 9-8. They barely missed the playoffs, but I think that this is one of those teams that injuries really killed them. You look at their D line and their edges; they were hurt the entire season. You look at their O line; they can never stay healthy. Kenneth Walker always misses a chunk of games every single season. It feels like Witherspoon missed a few games last season. DK Metcalf missed a stretch of games this season with a knee. This team was probably a healthy spurt away from being a real player in the playoff space. I don't know what that looks like. Does that mean they win one game? Does that mean they win two? Who knows? But I think that with all of these injuries that they had, I think it was a no-brainer playoff team this season.
I was against them all season. You were very pro Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
And injuries just got the best of this team is really what it boils down to. I was also just a hater. But yeah, I think they were probably, if they had one or two less injuries, they probably end up making the playoffs.
Well, everybody knows me. I am a very big Geno Smith fan, so that's really why I believed in this team so much. I don't want to be too repetitive because we just made a video within like the last 2 weeks on this, but I just want to get into maybe one of the most all-time questionable off seasons from John Schneider, where it really feels like what I've come away with is that this was his real first crack at being able to make this team fully his and get the Pete Carroll era completely out of the building now at this point, because Geno Smith was a Pete Carroll guy, DK Metcalf was a Pete Carroll guy, and it felt like this was his chance to fully take control of this roster and make it his. And like I said, say goodbye to the Pete Carroll era, because that's the only thing that makes sense in my head, because Pete Carroll had a big say in all personnel when they were brought into the building in Seattle. And I feel like now that John Schneider kind of has that cog off of him and away from him, this was his, like I said, this was his first chance to really do it. And I mean, shit, he did it.
Yeah, the new build of this team, I'm just really not a fan of. But like I said, I feel like we've already kind of dove into this. I'm also not going to lie. I've been trying to look up some other stuff on the Seahawks as you were going off on that, but I just don't love what they did off season wise here in Seattle. And I think that Seattle fans are much more optimistic about the way that this team's going to shake out than we are. And I think they need to actually take a step back and be a little bit more concerned than what it seems like everybody is right now.
Yeah, and just real quick, I mean, they traded Geno Smith for a third-round pick. They traded DK Metcalf for a second-round pick. They released Tyler Lockett. Those guys are those are just nucleus pieces. If you you're looking at me in the face and saying, we're a few injuries away from making a run in the playoffs last season. And the first thing that we're going to do is just completely blow up this roster. And I think that this is blowing up the roster. I mean, you get rid of Geno Smith. Geno Smith's a good quarterback. I don't care what anyone says. I know people have different opinions on him, but you look at the quarterback play across the league, he gives you above average quarterback play that most teams would die for. And you go and you get rid of him. Then you trade DK Metcalf for a second round pick. These aren't hauls that you're getting back for these players in any way, shape, or form. So in my head, people, the Seahawks fans are going to be in the comments like, oh, but they wanted money. Yeah, you pay your good players. That's the point. If you draft a good player like a DK Metcalf, the goal is to have him sign multiple contracts within that organization, because that's the point. With the Geno Smith situation, he signed a 2-year, $75 million deal. I feel like that's a relatively fair ask. I don't think that he was walking into the Seattle Seahawks being like, I need a 5-year Jalen Hurts contract. So
he just wanted an extension.
Seattle, He just wanted an extension and to be compensated at market, which I think was a weak argument in the comments the last time that we made a Seattle Seahawks video where they were acting like Geno Smith was asking for all the money in the world and they were acting like DK Metcalf didn't want to be there. Well, I guarantee you that if the Seattle Seahawks said, hey, DK, here's a 5-year, $150 million contract, that he would have wanted to be there. So I think that every single move that they have made so far this offseason has been a significant downgrade of where they were at this season. For example, they signed Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, and I don't want to rehash this fully, but Sam Darnold was a middle of the road quarterback in every single metric last season with
playing
probably
in a top offensive talent around him,
with probably the best wide receiver in the game, with a great play caller, a great number 2, a good tight end, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. I mean, these are high level guys. Aaron Jones, like these are high level guys with a great defense and a good offensive line. And he was middle of the road across the board. So now you're putting him into a situation where I said this already. If it was JSN, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf, and you put Sam Darnold into this offense, I might not say too much, honestly. But at this point, you have Jake Bobo, you have JSN, who I love. I think JSN's a star. But then you add a 32-year-old Cooper Kupp who legitimately can't.
Folks, we might have lost him.
Where did I cut out at?
Adding 32-year-old Cooper Kupp.
You add a 32-year-old Cooper Kupp to a 3-year deal. And before everybody starts getting in the comments being like, well, these are deals that they can get off out of Sam Darnold after 1 year or Cooper Kupp after 1 year. On all of the public information that we have on these contracts, that is not the case. So unless if you have a source, don't come in the comments. So that is, and then they added the MVS, they added DeMarcus Lawrence. Why blow up a team that I think when you look at the nucleus that they had last season, I think that's a really good nucleus. Why that almost made the playoffs? Why completely blow it up and make it disjointed? Because these are major positions that they're changing. Quarterback, number 1 wide receiver, like a veteran who's been there forever. Like these are key pieces in the organization and culture setters. And I just feel like it makes no sense. And I feel like if you don't think anything other than that this team got worse this offseason, you are wrong.
They 100% did. They brought in a younger but worse quarterback. They brought in an older, declining, worse wide receiver.
Washed.
And I just don't understand. I understand being a fan, but there also has to be a look in the mirror moment when you have to realize that Sam Darnold had the best year of his career, and he was in one of the best offensive scenarios that you could have been in the NFL. The Seahawks clearly have money. They were able to pay all of these guys in the offseason. So I don't understand that argument either. Unless there was a report going out that said DK Metcalf does not want to be here, and DK Metcalf reported it himself. I don't want to hear that excuse either.
None.
I don't understand why we're the only ones looking at this and saying that they got worse when the fans can't sit there and even remotely recognize that on paper this is a worse team. They could prove us wrong, of course. They like that stuff happens all the time, but like based off of what we've seen from Sam Darnold's career, based off of the trajectory that we've seen on Cooper Kupp's career, like I don't think you can really sit here and say that things are going to be too great over there.
I don't think so either. this is a team, like I said, it should have been a playoff team, and it was just missed. So to completely redefine the DNA, they definitely are worse next season for sure. And I think they got rid of DK Metcalf, who is 27 years old, like a player who I don't think DK Metcalf is like the best at his position, but valuable asset within an offense. So I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this because we did talk a lot about the Seattle Seahawks. Link will be down below in the description, but we can get into the NFL draft because we didn't talk about that last time. They sit at pick number 18. What side of the ball do you think that the Seattle Seahawks go with in the draft? And they should.
I think they go. Do you want me to just go side of the ball or what position?
Whatever you think. Go ahead. Who do you think they take?
I think they take Gray Zabel, the interior offensive lineman from North Dakota State. I think they need to continue to build out this offensive line. Geno Smith was under pressure at a crazy rate last year and still was able to put up decent numbers. Sam Darnold is a guy that is going to need a clean pocket. I think he's definitely more mobile than Geno, but regardless, you don't think so?
No way.
I think he's more mobile than Geno.
Geno Smith's mobile.
I don't think either one of them are overly athletic. I'm just saying I think Sam Darnold's probably moves a little bit better than Geno Smith at this point in his career. But either way, I still think you got to go interior offensive lineman or somebody along the offensive line here.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I picked number 18. Their guards stink. I mean, and that's just to like put it lightly. And I think the only thing that they could do is take a guard in the spot. The person who I have them taking is Tyler Booker, the guard out of Bama. The only thing that is probably a question mark around him is that he tested awful at the combine. And I think that could lead him to drop. I don't know how far, because the other report on Tyler Booker is that he is just the best guy ever and nailed all of his interviews. So it's one of those situations. Maybe he did it on purpose to get on a good team, but he's the guy that I picked, but same substance. We both want to go guard here, which makes the most sense for them because I have it written down right here. Sam Darnold just needs time. Like he needs time to be able to operate. And the second that if there's a bad offensive line in front of him, I will be it'll be from like a concern to very concerned on what the Sam Darnold era will look like in Seattle.
I mean, we already saw Sam Darnold in Carolina. They had a terrible offensive line. I will say that Seattle has better receivers, but at the time, Carolina had Christian McCaffrey. So I guess it kind of all cancels out, but the same factor is that offensive line was bad, and so is Sam Darnold. So, like, that's more so of what I'm expecting here. Now, the coaching staff is probably better in Seattle, but from a coaching perspective, I think there's only so much you can do if your quarterback is constantly under pressure.
Geno Smith and Sam Darnold, I'm looking at their stats right now, are equally as mobile.
Okay.
So
maybe one had to run more because their offensive line was worse.
Geno Smith had the most rushing yards out of everybody, like out of the two of them in his career, like in a season, but neither of them are great, to be honest. So
you're saying that they're not Lamar?
No, they're definitely not Lamar. Do you have anything else you want to add about the Seahawks? I don't want to spend too much time on them because we just made the video, obviously. So,
nope.
White clouds blowing out when we max 4-5, not the size, but it kick up highlight of my life.